Sorry, Riley, is that,
He's definitely moved.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Because I thought I was going crazy.
I asked everybody.
Well, no, I was just checking with David, and he was like, no, man.
Yeah.
I swear to God, he was back there.
Hey guys, we got to shoot.
Crap. Techlinked. A couple of weeks ago, Microsoft announced that they would switch to using Chromium as the basis for their Edge browser. But if a former member of the Edge team is to be believed, Google basically forced Microsoft's hand in this. An internet user called Joshua JB claims to have been a developer on the Edge team and alleges that Google added a hidden, empty HTML element to YouTube, which effectively nullified the speed advantage that Edge had over Chrome in loading videos. It did not make Chrome any faster, it just made Edge slower, leading many to think that Google made the change simply to cripple Edge without investing the engineering into making their own product better. And this whole Edge story is making people seriously contemplate the fact that Chromium-based browsers will represent 80% of all browsers. Google is known for making some web features Chrome exclusive, and if everyone uses Chrome, that means Google essentially controls at least some aspects of the web. Now, some people think monopolies are bad. As for me, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Almost as good as the board game Risk.
Especially when you pass go.
You end up with just as many friends at the end. Windows 10 is adding a less risky way for you to run potentially sketchy software. Windows SANDBOX is essentially a virtual machine that will be built into future versions of Windows. In a nutshell, it'll let you create, well, a little isolated temporary nutshell where if there's a bad nut, like let's say an app that you don't trust all the way or a website that you wouldn't normally visit, you can open it in there without infecting the rest of your system. And SANDBOX will be pretty light too, only requiring a 64-bit dual-core processor, 4 gigs of RAM, and 1 gig of free space. Unfortunately, you'll also need a Pro or Enterprise version of Windows. Home is not good enough. And we couldn't go another week without another story about Facebook compromising its users' security, could we? The New York Times seems to just have it out for the web giants lately because shortly after reporting on Google's invasive tracking practices, the outlet has released another bombshell report alleging that Facebook allowed a huge list of corporations to access sensitive user data without the knowledge of those users. Companies like Spotify, Netflix, and the Royal Bank of Canada were able to read, write, and delete users' private messages, while Apple had access to calendar entries and phone numbers. Some of the companies in question say they didn't even know they had access to the information. Gosh darn it, we missed our chance. And Facebook has responded saying that none of the partnerships in question allowed access to user information without permission. But of course they would say that. The whole debacle was capped off today by the news that the Attorney General of Washington, D.C. is suing Facebook over the privacy breaches brought to light by the Cambridge Analytica scandal. I mean, people take breaks from Facebook, but I think it's time Facebook took a break from just, waking up in the morning, just take a nap.
They're strung out.
I miss the old Facebook, do I? Well, it's in the script. And now it's time for Warm Mitts, brought to you by Vikings War of Clans. It's the mobile game inspired by top PC strategy and RPG games of the 90s like Age of Empires and Warcraft. Vikings gives you the option to choose your own playstyle, and with over 20 million online players, the battlefield is always evolving. You can relive your epic gaming memories as you fight over resources, forge new alliances, and compete in live events. Get a bonus 200 gold coins and a protective shield by downloading Vikings War of Clans today from our link in the video description.
I want coins. Well, should get it then, I guess.
It's time for Kwanzaa crates. Tharot.com claims to have some info about the next-gen Xbox consoles collectively codenamed Scarlet. What do you mean collectively codenamed Scarlet? You can't have the same damn codename for all of them.
We're all Scarlet.
Scarlet Pro, aka Anaconda, is the successor to the Xbox One X, Scarlet Arcade, aka Lockhart, is the successor to the Xbox One S. Then there's the discless Maverick console, which is supposedly coming next year. Now, while the higher end machines are set for a 2020 release, next year is not 2020, so some of them are coming later, which is why I should check punctuation before I read the script. Anyway, there's not much new information here, but at least we've got some cooler code names to use, like Scarlet and Scarlet.
Yeah.
And to top it off, Scarlet.
Scarlet.
Lenovo has announced their upcoming Z5 Pro GT, which will have the next-gen Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 system on a chip, a whopping 12 gigs of RAM, 512 gigs of storage, and a camera slider design that lets it sport a truly all-screen display. But so far, it's only got a Chinese release date, January 24th, after which time it will sell for roughly $640 US. Meanwhile, over here on the not cool continent, we've got $1,500 iPhones.
Hey.
Neat. Elon Musk and The Boring Company showed off the completed test tunnel that was built by the company, and journalists got to take a test ride in a modified Tesla. It got some rave reviews, with some riders saying it was surprisingly bumpy and traveled at a cool 35 miles an hour, which I'm sure feels super fast when you're
high as a kite. Hey!
Another one of Alphabet's X moonshot projects has spun off into its own company. Malta is an energy storage startup which uses molten salt to store heat and then antifreeze to store coldness. Its pilot energy plant has secured $26 million in funding from big names like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, and Michael Bloomberg. Okay, those aren't particularly big names. I mean, Jeffy over there only has like 9 characters, but they're like big personalities with big money.
Come on.
And who needs babies when you have an adorable robot creature thing? Lovot from Japan's Groove X. It's cute, it's cuddly, it asks you to pick it up and snuggle. Like, why would babies even be a thing anymore when we can have this? And at $5,300 US, it is I could tell you,
can tell me.
it is a lot cheaper than having a real kid.
I'll pick one up.
That is, as long as it has user replaceable batteries, right? And you don't have to buy a new one every 18 months like the iPhone.
Like kids.
Yeah. And that's it for this episode, guys. Thanks for watching, and here's a pro tip from a tech industry pro in the tech industry. If you click subscribe, you'll get more tech news. Just don't spread that around, it's a secret.
Whoa.
Nobody tell YouTube because they don't know.
Wow. Getting new info every day.
Yeah, they're not aware of that. Click the subscribe button, they're like, what? I thought that was just like, oh yeah, maybe, man, maybe.
Just like, I feel like
Maybe, baby.
Hey.
Yeah, hey.